Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars.
The show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are going forward, one film after another, just blasting through them.
Look at you.
We're killing it, man.
From here on out, it's one film after another.
Yeah. You know, if the podcast ever falls apart, that wouldn't be a bad, nod to use as a new name.
I wonder if we could use a clip from this movie where Leo actually says that, but then when he says battle, you just come in with film.
Yeah, just hyperimpose it, or just put the Zaboomafoo laugh over it. One ha.
The legacy of that laugh is getting ahead of me.
I love that the legacy exists between you and me.
Yeah,
and I intend to use it more. I specifically recorded you doing it, but I haven't used it since I've done that. So it's like I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, it's like a rainy day thing, right? You're going to use it at some point, and then when it hits, it's going to really hit.
Yeah.
I imagine if we ever get some big event that we're hosting, and it's just hey man, this is really prestigious, I'm so proud of us. You're just release the Zaboomafoo cut.
I'm waiting for it. I'm ready.
That's fine. It keeps me humble.
It keeps me happy. Today, we're talking about some would argue, the front runner for Best Picture?
At least one of two. I think this was, when it came out, kind of the front runner and has held that position pretty tightly ever since then. Of course, we're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. This was released in August of 2025, and this is wish I would have had this number, but this is not the first film that we've seen at the Academy or in general from Paul Thomas Anderson. No. He's brought us movies such as Boogie Nights, Magnolia, There Will Be Blood, most recently Licorice Pizza, Phantom Thread, a ton of features. But, as we'll get into it, always a bridesmaid, never the bride with Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah. Something that's going to be very prevalent with our conversation on this movie.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I'm looking at this little fact, and I'm like, do I save it or do I say it now? But I'll just throw it out there. 14 nominations, 0 wins throughout his career. Across director, best picture, adapted screenplay, original screenplay, but never had a win. So I think this might be the year that changes. This might be his year.
Well, let's look at the math here. You talked about how for his, storied history, he's had 14 nominations. 13 nominations are coming for One Battle After Another, right? So that's almost matching how many nominations he's had previously in one movie. That's an incredible feat that he's done.
Right. And he himself, I think has three nominations just from this film alone, going specifically to Paul Thomas Anderson.
You're referring to adapted screenplay, director, and picture.
Correct, yeah. So he has 3 opportunities to seal the deal this year and take home a win.
He does, and based on how much he's been on screen and on stage, rather, I think that it's pretty likely that we're going to see at least a number of these in his favor. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Kyle, do you want to talk through what those 13 nominations are for One Battle After Another?
So, as we said, for directing, adapted screenplay, and best picture, those 3 going to Paul Thomas Anderson. Actor in a leading role for Leonardo DiCaprio. Actor in a supporting role, 2 nominations in this category, which will be a reoccurring theme throughout this year. That goes to Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn. Actress in a supporting role for Tiana Taylor. Casting for Cassandra Kulakundis. Cinematography for Michael Bauman. Film editing for Andy Jurgensen. Original score for Johnny Greenwood. Production design for Florencia Martin and Anthony Carlino. Sound for Jose Antonio Garcia, Christopher Scarabozio, and Tony Villaflor. And yes, that's it. Yeah. That was a long list, so I was just like, yes, and this, and this, and
And
this.
not the longest that we'll talk about in episodes
Which
to
is
come.
wild.
But 13 nominations, while it's not record-breaking, is still very high.
Huge.
You know, absolutely incredible that it almost does touch on or meet the number of nominations in Paul Thomas Anderson's career.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because, you know, I think let's take a step back here. If we talk about the legacy of Paul Thomas Anderson, like in the film community, he is a titan. Like he is someone who has a lot of depth to his name. There Will Be Blood is arguably one of the better movies of the past century, let alone in general.
Totally.
Features one of the best performances in my eyes of all time from Daniel Day-Lewis as Daniel Plainview. I love that movie. And it was nominated at the Oscars, but it didn't win. Obviously, that year was No Country for Old Men. So there's competition there, too. And I think that the, you know, Bridesmaids versus Bride reference that I made earlier is something that's going to factor in a lot to his potential of winning or probability of winning these Oscars. I think that lends itself to One Battle After Another as well. But setting the scene with One Battle After Another, this movie does take place in the modern world, something we don't normally see from Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
We tend to see period pieces or, you know, 1970s. There's a joke going into this movie that you don't see a cell phone in any of his movies, and that tends to change with One Battle After Another.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Very true.
But modern world, and we follow two radicalists, Teyana Taylor, who plays Perfidia Beverly Hills. An insane name. We should look into changing your name, Kyle. Kyle Beverly Hills is a pretty tight name, actually.
It is pretty cool.
And then Leo DiCaprio as, at the time, Pat. Ghetto Pat is the name that we hear.
Yeah.
But he will be known as Bob Ferguson for the majority of the podcast here. They are of a radical group called the French 75. They meet Colonel Lockjaw, Captain Lockjaw at the beginning, and they are trying to free prisoners that Lockjaw is imprisoning for immigration purposes. And they continue to bother and be a thorn in his side until Perfidia Beverly Hills is captured, and she does rat out, for lack of a better word, the French 75, which causes them to go into hiding, the remaining members. So Ghetto Pat does change his name to Bob Ferguson, moves his daughter, whose name is now Willa Ferguson, and moves her to Backton Cross, where they lived in their new identities. And we cut to 16 years later, and we see them living together. Unfortunately, because Lockjaw is trying to join a community called the Christmas Adventurers Club, he is forced to clean up his past, and that includes the potential of his mixed-race child, Willa Ferguson, and making sure that there are no ties to him so he can join this club, which causes the movie to move forward. Now, it's kind of hard to describe this movie because this movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it is an epic. It takes the place over 16 years or so, maybe 17, depending on, you know, where we start at the beginning. But it does have a massive scope, which is not something we normally see from Paul Thomas Anderson as well. Kyle, what did you think about this movie?
It's weird to say it's fun, but it is like such a sprawling epic that really kind of captures so many different emotions. It's super timely, which I think has been a major topic of conversation just this entire year that, I don't know, people have been talking about it since its premiere in September. I mean, you're dealing with immigration, you're dealing with soldiers and government officials who are part of secret societies and clubs and racism and just all kinds of things that are so eerily on theme with true events. But then there's like so much comedy sprinkled into this movie. It is engaging from the beginning to the very end, and I had a blast with it.
You know, I was questioning what I wanted to walk in saying about this movie, or say about this movie walking in. I don't feel bad about saying that this is pretty much a near perfect movie. I think that, to your point, you know, it is really fun. And when you hear that description of what I just said and you see the movie and like the points that it touches on, which is extremely prescient and extremely like relevant to our current times, it's hard to say the word fun. But right. I think that the cast, I think that the writing, I think the performances, the tone of this movie lend itself to an overall incredible, perfect experience. The highs are highs. The moments that are very emotional hit extremely hard. The vulnerability from the characters lands every time. And it feels like everyone really is giving their best possible performance in this movie. It's really hard to imagine a better movie with this, or a better version of this movie, rather. Which is, it's interesting because there are a lot of things that kind of stood against it. I think there's, the general unknown of like a Teyana Taylor, right? This isn't her debut or anything, but it really is kind of like her rise to a height that she hasn't been at previously. Chase Infinity. This is her on-screen debut for a feature film.
Yes.
She's previously been in Handmaid's Tale on TV, but this is her first on-screen debut on a big screen. And she is phenomenal.
She's so good.
And we'll talk about her absence here from the, whether it be supporting or lead actress category in this, but she really is the heart of the movie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of options or a lot of directions and decisions that are made in this movie that I think some people didn't expect walking in. I think they thought, hey, this is Leo's movie. This is a Leonardo DiCaprio-led film. Fantastic. When in reality, he kind of takes a back seat to screen time when it comes to like Chase Infinity or even Lockjaw in some cases, Sean Penn's character.
Totally.
I should also walk down the list here when we're talking about these individuals. This film stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Bob Ferguson, Chase Infinity as Willow Ferguson, Bob's 16-year-old daughter that he had with Perfetti Beverly Hills, who is played by Teyana Taylor. Sean Penn as Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, Benicio del Toro as Sensei Sergio St. Carlos, and Regina Hall as Deandra. It's so interesting because we talk about casting, and I'm very excited to talk about casting on this. The casting on this movie was just top notch. Everyone here is firing on all cylinders. I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about Benicio del Toro as Sensei Sergio. Mm-hmm. You talk a lot about the comedy of this. You said fun, how fun this movie is. There's a pretty tense sequence of like a raid on Sensei Sergio's house or compound. And
his
dojo. And that sequence is so well done because the tension is there of like, hey, the police are coming. Lockjaw is on his way. He sent his like goons after them. He's coming. Mm-hmm. But the ocean waves, the calmness that exudes from Sensei Sergio, and how he has led his people, and he's done this before. We're watching Bob as this, as this radicalist who's burnt his brain. He's fried his brain on weed and trying to take care of his daughter, that he's forgetting the code words. He's forgetting the script. He's forgetting not the reason, but like the way to talk with his other like members of the French 75.
Right.
So we're watching him fail upwards this whole movie. Any situation he gets in, he's not winning. He's just stumbling into the next step of it. Whether that be, forgetting the keywords to have a conversation with the French 75, or quite literally stumbling off a roof onto a tree and then on the ground.
Yeah.
Kind of breaking sequence here. An unbelievable scene because it really does. There's not an obvious cut. You see a man jump from the roof and then fall back on a tree, fall down and land on the pavement before getting up and walking towards the camera, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some magic done there, but ultimately it just looks like Leonardo DiCaprio jumped off a roof, fell on a tree, and fell onto concrete. Like, what is going on in that scene? So you're watching Bob Ferguson fail upwards this whole movie, and Benicio del Toro is such an amazing anchor to him because he's keeping him grounded. He's losing his mind on the phone, Bob, with the French 75, trying to just, hey, I can't remember these words. Just please let me find out where my daughter is. And Sensei is just keeping him calm of ocean waves.
Yep.
There's a great scene where he's like, I just don't know what time it is, Comrade Josh. And Benicio del Toro is like 8:15. It's so good. So I agree. The balance is there. It's a very fun movie, whether it be Benicio del Toro or the absurdity of a Colonel Lockjaw's character, who's also reprehensible. Casting on this movie, I don't think you're going to zag too far from me, but what are your thoughts on this?
No, I mean, it's almost the lock for me for the casting. Yeah, the lockjaw for me. For the casting nomination, just because not only do you have just perfect casting all around, but like you said, everybody came to do their job for this movie. There is no miss in the entire cast lineup. We talked about Frankenstein and how, Oscar Isaac, he wasn't completely there for us. And just the nominations alone, like you had Jacob Elordi get nominated in that film. In Hamnet, you have Jessie Buckley that got nominated for her role. But in this film, you have 4 acting nominations across the board.
You could have more.
Yeah, you could have more. Chase Infinity, I really think, deserved an Oscar nomination. So it really is kind of like, regardless of everything else that happens in this movie, the technical achievements and things like that, it is so perfectly casted and performed that not only are all of these actors deserving of their nominations, all 4 of them, plus Chase Infinity, but Cassandra Koulakundis and this casting nomination, she's worked on most Paul Thomas Anderson films. Clearly, she's doing incredible work throughout her career, because I don't know that there has been a miss in Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the elephant in the room is probably Licorice Pizza. I don't think that makes it...
Get out of here.
It's not a bad movie. No, I agree. I think it's great. But I think it's easily the most like question mark movie in his filmography. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just more like, hey, I brought you There Will Be Blood, and then I brought you Phantom Thread, and now here's Licorice Pizza, and everyone's like, this is so different.
Yeah.
But good. And, obviously it's the first time that he works with Sean Penn, and then that returns for this movie as well. Alana Haim, also a return for Licorice Pizza, or for Paul Thomas Anderson from Licorice Pizza to one of the members of the French 75 in One Battle After Another. Mm-hmm. Also, not really lost on me. I don't know if you caught this. She is the character that's on screen when the title drops on screen.
Oh.
Alana's walking towards the building when the words pop up.
That's cool.
Just a cool little thing.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, you're right. There's really not a miss. I unfortunately have not had the chance to see Hard 8, his first feature film. But otherwise, I've gone down the list of his filmography, and I love all those features. Shout out to my buddy Chase. He actually got me to the Plaza a few years back to see Boogie Nights in 35 millimeter.
Nice.
And that was amazing to see.
Very nice.
I won't say it's one of my favorites of his, but I since saw Magnolia, and that rocked my world. Didn't know what to expect from that, and I just was kind of breathtaking with that. Punch Drunk Love, you talk about Licorice Pizza and how much of I keep using that word, zag was. You look back at Punch Drunk Love, it was a similar situation, right? With the movies he's made, that was kind of a different type of movie.
Yeah.
So it's not unheard of, but it's also a testament to how Paul Thomas Anderson is not meeting anyone else's agenda. He really is doing the movies that feel right for him.
Right. And Punch Drunk Love is interesting because if I remember correctly, that's a very early moment of Adam Sandler doing a dramatic role.
I think that was his first.
And I think that speaks a lot to how PTA is able to get performances out of actors. He can either find new actors, and this isn't just PTA. Again, we're talking about the casting nomination for Cassandra Koulakundis. But they're able to find these people who are either up and coming, like Chase Infinity and Tiana Taylor, who's not been in a ton of stuff prior to this, and this is definitely her year. Did you see she won a Grammy this year?
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. She's having a crazy, excellent year. I mean, so props to her.
It is incredible the work that she does in this movie and how she's nominated for it. It is interesting. You talk about the actors who were nominated for this and how many nominations they saw for acting. And I agree with you. I think Chase Infinity is a force in this movie and deserves to be recognized. The things that make it a little more complicated are that essentially Warner Brothers would be looking at putting up either Chase Infinity in the lead actress role against powerhouse performers who have been here before, so it tends to lead a little more in their direction, or supporting actress, and then she would be a complete, not complete, but she would be a opposition to Tiana Taylor from the same movie. Right. So it gets a little difficult. We're seeing this in real time happen with Sentimental Value, with Elle Fanning versus Inga Ipstadter Ilias.
Yeah. Well, and also in this movie with Del Toro and Sean Penn.
There you go. So that's what's interesting is you really could have done it. But the difficulty, too, is that Chase Infinity, I would argue, this is her movie. She really is the driving force of the story and the most screen time. I haven't done the math on that, but
yeah,
it's probably just about the same as Bob.
Yeah. I would just because he exists obviously prior to her being born and all of that. I think he does have more screen time ultimately. But man, she is fantastic. She's able to. It's so funny. The one person we're talking about the most is the one that was not nominated.
Yeah.
But she really is like so good in this movie, especially for her like feature debut. But she has like a fierceness to her that I think perfectly represents her parents, being Tiana Taylor and Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie. Towards the end of this movie, she has this battle basically with Sean Penn, with Lockjaw, and just the comedy she's able to deliver. I lost it when.
Why is your shirt so tight?
Yes, it's so funny. It's so funny, and just like at the very end, without spoiling anything, but after Bob shows up to like rescue her, and she's kind of got a gun locked on whoever happens to cross in front of the sights. Just her face in that moment is like a perfect example of her acting prowess. She's so good.
Yeah, because it's the survival of it, right?
Yeah.
Like she really is like we were introduced to Chase Infinity in the movie with her practicing at the dojo with Sensei Sergio. So she's defending herself and she's learned how to defend herself. I'm sure that's Bob's idea, but she was never really expecting this to happen, right? Her father was always this paranoid, high individual, right?
Yeah.
He was just a stoner and he's paranoid and she's just lived with it. I actually I enjoyed this movie a lot on a second viewing. Did you watch it? You did watch it twice.
I've only seen it once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it plays better a second time. And here's why. There's a couple of things that I caught the second time that I didn't catch the first time. One of them is towards the end, there's a sequence. There's a device in two ways, more than one. There's a device that's introduced in the movie that allows for anyone with the same device that's nearby within a certain radius, that one device makes a certain jingle or noise and the other device makes a noise at the same time. That's a way for you to know that the only people who have these are like a really trusted source, right? And it's a way to know, like, hey, someone nearby, I can trust them, along with the code phrases that the French 75 has employed. Now, that's introduced, and later on there's a scene where Bob is chasing after Willa, Lockjaw, and another individual. And there's a scene where Bob is driving and Willa passes him in the car on the left. And it's so tense. You're so afraid of what's happening with Willa and her situation. She's in the back of a car. She's detained. And she's trying to kick the window down. And Bob just drives by, but he's panicked looking for his daughter. And the music's just, the score, we'll talk about it later, very piano-driven, is just kind of like trickling away. And the anxiety of that and both of those characters makes you just kind of focus on them. But if you listen carefully, you can hear that jingle of those devices going off. And it's blending into the score. And in theaters, I didn't catch that. But a second time, I was like, well, if both of them were to calm down from what they were facing and just breathe, like Sensei tells them to, they'd hear that. And Bob would know, hey, I need to turn around because she's in the car. And Willa would know, someone's coming to protect me. So there's like, that's missed completely. And I thought that was so interesting. But the reason I brought this up, and this blew my mind, is in the beginning, when they find out that Perfetti Beverly Hills has ratted everyone out, and now the Lockjaw and his team are coming after everyone, Bob is introduced to his alter ego, or his new identity that he and his daughter are going to be taking. And he's introduced to the names Bob and Willa Ferguson. Now, it's not lost on us that as we fast forward 16 years later, Bob has completely fried his brain with drugs, and he is protecting his daughter, and he is doing the best that he can, but he is ultimately a screw-up, and he's just paranoid, staying at home, like sheltering in place, basically, right?
Yeah.
And Chase, Infinity, Willa, feels that she is the guardian for her father. She has to ask, why are you home so late? Why are you driving when you're drunk? Like, this isn't safe. It is introduced that when Ghetto Pat is given the name of Bob and Willa Ferguson, that this is actually originally a mother and son who died. So Willa was the mother and Bob was the son.
Interesting.
So we're already kind of getting an idea of how things are going to go for Bob.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing.
A little foreshadowing that he really is like having his daughter take care of him.
Yeah.
And I loved that little detail that I didn't catch the first time. It's such a nice little thing. So ultimately, this is why I love the movie so much, because they could have very easily just made it, hey, Leonardo DiCaprio is John Wayne. He's John Wayne. He's Clint Eastwood. Right. He's going to save his daughter. This is fine. This man fails at almost every corner other than just showing up.
Right.
And this is such a girl dad movie of just like, hey, man, how do you save the world? How do you save your daughter? And the answer is just keep showing up, man. Like, as long as you keep showing up, you don't have to like protect your daughter. You don't have to like kill whoever's like after her. You don't have to be the reason that like she's okay. As long as you keep showing up and you keep being there for her, she can defend herself.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing thing to introduce in a world right now where we're worried about like, is everyone okay? Can I protect the people that I love the most? And instead of like, you know, overshadowing them and shielding them from something, you let them experience the world and you just keep showing up because that's what people need. That was an incredible thing in this movie that I loved so much. And yeah, it's Chase Infinity's movie in that sense, but Leonardo DiCaprio taking a back seat to a younger actress like Chase Infinity and doing as well as he does here, I thought this was one of the best characters that Leo's got to play yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because again, it's such an amalgamation of all of these different emotions and themes and things driving his character. You could argue that Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn are, I don't want to say one-dimensional because they're incredible in their roles, but, you know, Sensei Sergio is very much like the Zen master, and then Colonel Lockjaw is very comparable to a public figure in the real world.
Can't imagine who you're referring to.
Right. But, you know, they have their very definitive character traits and things, and Leo gets to play around with a lot of different emotions. He's kind of like insane at the beginning of this movie with how intense and hardcore the French 75 are. He gets to showcase a lot of like passion, both in like his romantic life, but also his beliefs in the causes of the French 75. And then just the comedy behind him not being able to remember the code words and things like that. But the care for Willa. It's such a well-rounded role for him, and I agree. It's so enjoyable to watch. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say about the casting? Everybody's great.
Well, the thing is like, you know, especially on a second watch, it's so interesting to see the balance between Bob and Colonel Lockjaw. And I think you can't talk about one battle after another without talking about Sean Penn's performance in this movie. Reprehensible character, right? I mean, he's just really going for it in this movie. It is funny to say that in a movie where he is, I mean, you never really see it, but he's killing people on screen more or less, or off screen more or less, responsible for many deaths. And he's doing this for his own personal gain. All of these things are true. And yet the most reprehensible thing that he does on screen, that in theaters people react to the most, is when he's preparing to meet the Christmas Adventurers Club and he licks his comb and then runs it through his hair. And everyone was like, I hate this guy. I hate this man.
What a perfect little choice.
Exactly, because it makes it, if anyone's like, hey, I might be on the fence about this guy, it's like, no, never mind. He's terrible. But I bring him up, I mean, obviously because Sean Penn's incredible in this movie, but also because he really is a mirror image on the other side of Bob. Because both of these guys are standing for what they believe in, one way more justifiable than the other, but ultimately they're failing upwards, right? Like, we're watching Colonel Lockjaw, this imposing force, unless he's with Teyana Taylor, in which case he's very submissive, but an imposing force that turn into like a puddle in front of the Christmas Adventurers Club because he wants in so bad. Right? It becomes like a, yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Oh, this is exactly what I want.
Right.
Like, he is doing what he can to get this position of power that he wants so badly. And you watch him continue to fail. He's trying his best to get there. He's a little more driven than Bob. I'd say Bob is still extremely driven. He's just terrible at remembering these things.
Yeah.
And Colonel Lockjaw is terrible at controlling himself and controlling his urges and completing the job, more or less.
Yeah.
I think that there is a really, I mean, just that whole scene of like pretty much the raid of or the battle, so to speak, at Bacton Cross, which was originally the title of this movie. I believe it was like the Battle of Bacton Cross. Then it changed to one battle after another. I thought that whole sequence was incredible, and one of the things that I thought was so, again, extremely relevant to what we're talking about in the past, I mean, certainly 6 years, but forever, is when the people of Bacton Cross are standing up against the SWAT team that are pretty much raiding the streets, taking their people away. And at one point, Lockjaw tells someone to start the party or, you know, light a fire. And they say, send an Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
And a car drops off an individual from Lockjaw's team, but dressed in a Van Halen t-shirt. And he launches a Molotov cocktail in the direction of the cops, but not close enough to even remotely hit someone. And of course, this riles up the people who are already there, who wouldn't have done this on their own, but it incites this riot that now the police can move forward on. And I'll talk about it in my double feature, but it really does speak to where we are currently, where there are intentional, insightful of riots to make people unhappy with where they are. And that's another reason, the reason this movie is so relevant. So it's incredible they can do this like extremely microscopic look of where we are right now. But to your point, make it fun and very like, humorous and engaging and not just, oh, this is not making me feel good about where we are right now.
Right.
So it feels a very relevant movie, but it's also a huge movie for Paul Thomas Anderson, right? I mean, this is something for him where he has daughters. Like it's not hard to look into how much he's writing himself into Bob Ferguson. And especially with the way this movie wraps, like, trying to avoid iPhones. We talk about, I mentioned at the top of the episode, he hasn't filmed iPhones in his movies.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene in this where Leonardo DiCaprio is very comfortably laying on his couch, just like, how do I turn the flash on my phone?
Right.
Like
yeah.
he's exploring the idea of starting to use a phone, which is interesting because the question is, I don't have to tell you as a stage actor. Well, sorry, you've been on set, but like, I'm not saying you're just on stage. You're an actor. That's what I'm saying. You're an actor. So as an actor, you know this, but like the question isn't just, do I just film someone holding an iPhone? It's like, well, how do I incorporate the iPhone into this to where it's not just, hey, I'm using an iPhone. Right. And the way that iPhones are used in this movie is almost like, hey, I hate the idea of using phones in here. They're tracking devices. Destroy that phone. Destroy that phone. Destroy that phone.
It's almost like in a horror movie where you're like, well, how do we make it so they don't just call the police?
Yeah.
It's like, power went out.
Just destroy it.
Satellite blew up randomly.
But instead, it's much more controlled. All of this just... The thing that I'm saying, and I'll wrap this up, is it's an extremely intentional movie. Everything that happens in this has a reason. There's an intention for it, and it feels so purposeful. There's never like anyone who complains like, hey, that movie's a little long. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. I don't know what to cut. I'm going to be so honest with you. I don't know a single scene I would cut in this movie.
No, everything serves a purpose, even if that purpose is a brief moment of comedy, which, I mean, that could be serving as relief for a very tense moment, which, again, like you just said, having those comedic moments in a movie that does encapsulate so many real things happening in the world, you kind of need that relief to keep you drawn in. And I think that helps sell the topics and the themes of the movie without feeling like you're being weighed down by them.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to say about the balance of like the comedy and the drama is that I think there hasn't been a time where you could really make this connection more clearly than this movie. But I love how much Paul Thomas Anderson's style lends to a Coen Brothers style of comedy, right? I think that PTA balances a little bit more of the drama and seriousness of his story, whereas the comedy of the Coens exists. I mean, I say that in a world where No Country for Old Men beat out There Will Be Blood for its year of the Academy Awards. But this movie, more than anything else that PTA has done, felt so Coen-like, right? It did very much feel like there's a cast of characters and the goofiness of those characters. I really, really liked that. I think especially in the absurdity of Bob Ferguson talking with like Sergio, there's that whole scene where he's just like, hey, I really need my weapon. And Sensei is just holding out I think it's like a mandolin case that has like a gun in there. He's just holding it out. And there's that whole like, Viva la Revolucion. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you. That whole sequence just feels so Coen Brothers. A few small beers feels very Coen's too. I really, really like that aspect of the balance of the humor and everything else in it. So just, I can't rave enough about this movie.
Yeah.
And I love that it's not just, well, hey, Ryan loved this movie only. This is a phenomenon. People loved this. It did very, very well. It was the highest grossing movie that PTA has done. I think some people would argue that it didn't make enough, and it's not justifying, a large budget like this had, but you take that aside, you can't fight the numbers. Like, this was an IMAX release, and it did extremely well.
Well, I want to bring up that it was even more than an IMAX release. This was a big deal because this was shot using VistaVision, and that has become more popular in recent years.
Especially with The Brutalist.
Yeah, exactly, The Brutalist. This, I want to say this entire movie was shot using VistaVision.
That's true.
Which I think is the first film to do that since VistaVision went away in like the 50s. So this is huge. We didn't talk about it with Begonia. Begonia also used a little bit of VistaVision, but I think you can really see that in this movie. And what a great segue to talk about the cinematography.
Wow.
It's a gorgeous movie. And there are so many shots that really utilize that wide format that VistaVision brings. One of the best you can see in the trailer, I think, is when Lockjaw and the other individual that is going to take Willa to dispose of her.
The bounty hunter.
Yes.
Yes.
They meet out in the desert and they park their cars like 100 yards away from each other. And there's just this beautiful wide shot where you get to see exactly how far they are from each other. And you're taking in the landscape. It's a beautiful shot, beautifully framed, and kind of sets up the scene of, listen, everything that's about to happen in this climax, like, there's nobody out here. We are completely alone, and things are about to get very intense. And I think a lot can be attributed to that setup, thanks in part to the VistaVision shooting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the comparison to the Coen brothers, and I want to hop back to cinematography, is the whole Christmas Adventurers Club. That whole sequence, or not sequence, but that whole idea lends itself so much to the Coen brothers. There's a line towards the end of the movie that talks about a reverse action, and it has Jim Downey, from a writer from SNL, commonly known from his meme with Conan O'Brien of identifying individuals as things that they aren't really before. I'll tell you off screen. But Jim Downey has a great line where he's like, a semen demon. Like, just an unreal, like, this line shouldn't hit as hard as it does, but it's the perfect blend of comedy.
Yeah.
And that absurdist comedy, like, really does help out. So it does feel very Coen's, but I think to your point about cinematography, you really can't talk about this movie and cinematography and not talk about the highway scene, right? Yeah. Towards the end. Like,
man,
that in some cases, that was the poster. Like, that was the poster for the movie, was just those hills. And it's amazing because that really was just a happenstance, right? It's not like PTA was driving and saw those hills and he's like, oh, I got to write one battle after another. He was writing this and then saw those hills, or maybe they're filming and saw those hills, and he's like, hey, that's a really great idea of the people at home can't see me doing the hand wave. The hand wave.
Stuck your hand out the window.
Going up and down, and the roller coaster of, like, not just the metaphor of the movie in life in general, but like the way that allows you to then use the rear views to see if there's someone in the distance, and can you see them? Can you see someone on the horizon coming after you? And that helps that idea of paranoia. So there's such an incredible vision and eye to this movie that the cinematography captures. So the cinematography on this specifically is Michael Bauman. What has he done previously?
So he actually met Paul Thomas Anderson while working as a gaffer on The Master and Inherent Vice.
Oh, wow.
So he came up doing lighting. The cool thing that I see a reoccurring theme here is that Paul Thomas Anderson met a lot of people doing different roles on earlier films, and he has allowed them, I don't want to say allowed, but he's hired them for bigger jobs.
Sure.
So on The Phantom Thread, this is kind of interesting too, and we'll talk about it when we get to that film and that Academy year. There was no official cinematographer for The Phantom Thread. It was just a bunch of people, including Paul Thomas Anderson and Michael Bauman, just sitting behind the camera and being like, okay, this is your shot, this is my shot, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Then he co-shot Licorice Pizza.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like this progressive, like, hey, you did really good on this last film as the gaffer, so now you can shoot a couple things with Phantom Thread. Oh, now you're going to co-shoot Licorice Pizza. And then ultimately, he ends up as the sole cinematographer for One Battle After Another.
Wow.
And it's so cool. You talked about this car chase scene, and to me, it's the perfect climax for this movie. They were going to scope out the location for the church, and on the way back, they passed these hills, and they were like, I've got an idea. This is going to be great. Again, bringing up VistaVision, I am so sad that I didn't get to see it in that format, or even in the IMAX format. I watched it at home for the first time, and it was still super effective. But the examples that I've seen are that because of the VistaVision format, the camera actually sits very low to the road during these scenes, and it feels like you're flying.
Yeah.
I felt that way anyway watching the movie. So for the opportunity to see it in VistaVision or even on IMAX, it's got to be so much more exciting to all of that.
I do want to shout out my wife, Taylor. When we saw this, she heard Leonardo DiCaprio, Girl Dad, and she was like, I'm seated. I'm there. And we saw it, And we did see it in IMAX. That's why I'm bringing this up. And we sat down Thursday night, opening of this movie in IMAX. And as the Nicole Kidman ad starts playing for AMC, she looks over at me very slowly, like just a slow turn of the head. And she's like, "How long is this movie?" And I was like, "Oh, no." Now, this wasn't like a trick where I was like, I'm not going to tell you how long it is.
Right.
But when she asked that, I was like, oh, she doesn't know that this is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I told her, and she was like, I am so mad that you tricked me into seeing a 2 hour and 40-minute movie in IMAX. And by the end of the movie, she's like, well, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Nice.
Like, she loved it so much. So a testament to how, like, even my dad was like, I made this reference on F1, how he's like, hey, movies are long. They shouldn't be as long anymore.
Sure.
And then he watched this, and even he was like, you know, around the first half of this movie, I was like, I just don't know what the tone is of something like this. But by the end, specifically the highway scene that you're talking about with the road, he picked it up, and he was like, oh, I see what we're doing, and this is incredible. And he liked it a lot. He wasn't quite where I was or as high as I was on it, but still, I mean, I think that it's not lost on people because of that cinematography. So the reason that I say this movie is so great is that all these nominations are so well earned, right? Like cinematography especially, absolutely unreal. And I think it's a testament to the environment that PTA creates, where he can, to your point earlier, he looks at Adam Sandler and he's like, hey man, you were great in Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. But I think there is some sadness to you, like The Wedding Singer, that we can really flip and make it more 80% comedy and 20% drama in Wedding Singer, and flip it to make it like, you know, 80% drama and 20% comedy in something like Punch Drunk Love. So I think he has such a great eye for, you're really good at this. I think you have the potential to do this.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it lends to on screen, off screen, even as actors of, Leo, I know you can be the hero and you can John Wayne this movie all you want. It's better if you take a back seat and you're the ineffable fool for this, but you have a heart of gold.
Right. No, it's so cool that the opportunities that I think he grants people, which again makes it sound like he's like the all-powerful being who's like, you will direct and you will edit or whatever. But it really is just like you said, the editing category with Andy Jurgensen. They met during Inherent Vice. He was the assistant editor on that film, was then promoted to the associate editor on Phantom Thread, became the primary editor on Licorice Pizza. And now, you know, Michael Bauman, nominated for a PTA film. Like, it's so cool to see that just existing in the industry. And honestly, all of the research we've been doing for these modern films, this is research that I feel like I didn't dive into as deep during the first iteration of the show. And I'm really looking forward to the Academy Awards this year and seeing like all of these individual names being called and being like, oh wow, that's really exciting for them. They've never won an Oscar, or they've been working with PTA for X amount of years. Like, it's cool to know that backstory, and I'm excited for all of these people. Yeah,
you know, it's interesting because we talked on our last episode about Marty Supreme and how Timothée Chalamet came out of the gate last year with Complete Unknown, referencing how he wants to be one of the all-time greats. We referenced that to like sports, right?
Yeah.
He even said Michael Jordan. So it's like a sport, like an athlete calling his shot. I think it's interesting when we talk about best director, because when I think about a director, I really do think about a coach. And that really is what Paul Thomas Anderson is doing in his role. You can even tell when he's on stage accepting his awards, like on the DGAs or the Critics' Choice or the Golden Globes, he really is speaking about his team. You know, this isn't the work that I did. This isn't why I'm a great director. I'm only as good as the team that I'm built around.
Right.
Coaches, whenever they do press conferences for like games, they're always like, you know, I think they went out there and they did their best and we tried and all this. There's no I, it's we.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting that Paul Thomas Anderson is more of a coach in the director's seat than you would see in other people. So I love that. It makes me feel like he's a fantastic contributor and teammate.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to talk about, while we're still kind of talking about the hills and everything with cinematography and editing, is I do want to talk about the score. I think it is nominated for original score with Johnny Greenwood. And I think the score is getting a little slept on. It is very effective. It is a little, I'm not going to say one note, but there is one common theme that plays throughout the movie a good bit. Mm-hmm. I think it varies in terms of how effective it is. I think it's mostly very effective. But I think where it really hits its highs are two places. One, when Willa and Lockjaw have their first interaction inside of the church. there's that like little like we talk about plinking, like a plink of like a piano.
Yeah.
That's happening. I think you referenced like a cat walking on a piano. Just
Yeah.
like, dun, 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 dun,
But like one of those kid pianos too.
yes, high register.
Exactly.
And that's what's playing. There's a great shot up on the almost ceiling of Willa versus Bob, and Bob is or not Bob. I'm sorry, Lockjaw is sitting at the end of the church, and it's plinking, and he says like, "You come closer," or like, "You can come here," and then the score just like just hammers down.
Yeah.
And much like what we talked about Begonia, where it just like explodes, no swelling, it just explodes. And I thought this was great because this is a head-on collision, and this is amazing. And then there's another song, not the same riff, another song on those hills when Willa's driving, and she looks back in the rear view, and it's a constant shot that just cuts back to it, and then cuts back to her, and back to the rear view, and back to her. And I think the third or fourth time that it shows the rear view, the drums on the score cut out, and it's just like the dun, 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 like just plinking. And then as soon as a car appears at the top of the hill in the rear view, the drums come in with like da 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 da, and it goes right back to like the driving force.
Yeah.
Oh man, it makes you feel so like on the edge of your seat, like thrilled of what's happening.
Because it kind of sets it up where it's like, is this a car chase?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Is there anyone actually after her?
Exactly, and it just builds on that. It's so well done.
Because it's not. It's important to note in that scene for anyone who hasn't seen it. Which, by the way, what are you doing listening to this episode, not having seen the movie? Do that immediately. But she doesn't know who's in that car. Right? That's not the car that she knows that Lockjaw has been driving previously. She's just suspecting, is someone after me at all times now? Right? That paranoia that Bob has felt through the whole runtime. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing because there really is a chance in her eyes, we know the truth, but there's a chance in her eyes that someone isn't following her.
Right.
So she's almost using these hills to her advantage of like, is someone chasing after me? Amazing moment that is credit to her acting, credit to the direction, credit to the cinematography, credit to the score.
Yes.
So across the board, these are done really well.
Yeah. And I want to shout out to Johnny Greenwood. Anytime I hear that, like his name pop up for a score, I'm like, okay, that'll be nominated.
Yeah.
Like every single time. And he's the lead guitarist of Radiohead, of course. He's been nominated 3 times, once for The Phantom Thread, once for this movie, of course, and then for The Power of the Dog.
An interesting third.
Yeah. That actually has a really great score. It's like heavy on the strings, if I remember correctly. But it's funny because I just said every time I hear his name, I assume he got nominated, but this is his 3rd nomination, and he's never won. So this is going to be one of those where when they call his name for the nomination, I'm going to be like, oh, he's, this has been X amount of years in the making. Hooray for Johnny.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a similar thing for Ludwig Göransson, who's also nominated for original score.
Yes,
with Sinners,
but who has won quite a few times.
Correct. So there's a legacy, and there's there's a lot to it. I think it's interesting that Johnny Greenwood is almost a miniature version of Paul Thomas Anderson in terms of like I've been here before, but I haven't been on stage yet. So it's really interesting to see how that's going to relate compared to Sinners.
Right.
Which we'll get to Sinners when we get there. Let's talk a bit about the remaining nominations here. So we talked a bit about editing. We talked about director extensively. We did talk about casting, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
With Cassandra Kilakundis and the role that she played here. I mentioned on the previous episode where we covered Marty Supreme that One Battle and Sinners were really where I thought casting was going to be the most prevalent, even though I love the casting in Marty Supreme. And it's a testament to the work that Cassandra did on this movie because, again, there's not one person who's out of place in this. I think even the French 75, there's a character whose name I can't say, but JP. Unreal. That's her real name. Well, not her real name, but that's her name off camera as well. Correct. But she's incredible in this. Alana Haim is in it for a very short amount of time. She's 1/3 of the Haim sisters. I love that band, Haim. Check them out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot they were a band.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
I was just repping one of their newest album, Win 3. It was great. And I think the general cast there is so great. And the work that she's doing there cannot be understated. So love the casting on that. Where are you standing with production design and sound?
There's no reason I would be surprised if it won both of those categories. I mean, there's a lot of gunfire. There's a lot of
especially
car
towards the last
engines.
like 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the whole thing with
The raid, yeah.
the raid of the building and all of that, and even the opening of the movie where they're blowing stuff up. It's all pretty incredible. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. Production design, I assume, is also like the location scouting and everything, and just the beauty of the last like 20 to 30 minutes and the church in the desert and just the roads themselves for that incredible car chase sequence. Why, if it wins, sure, yeah, totally, in both of those categories.
I'm with you. I think the street, the rooftops, Sensei's compound, I think even like the tunnel, there's that great shot of Willa almost looks like in the beginning when she's playing with her dog, when the Lockjaw and his team first start arriving, she hears a helicopter flying overhead. That shot of her in her like little remote cabin in like the woods of Backton Cross almost feels like a princess. Like she's wearing like blue tulle of a skirt under like a leather jacket. And it just feels kind of like the duality of like, she's the princess, like with the skirt, but also like, the I am the leader of my own domain and future with like the leather jacket.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice duality of character for her. But that whole scene, it feels very much like Princess in the Forest, like, a royalty kind of thing. I think you're right. Like with scouting, like you can't not talk about that not final sequence, but towards the end with the hills. Also, the Sisters of the Brave Beaver, that church. It's more on cinematography, I suppose, but there's an incredible shot where the raid is happening on the church of the Sisters of the Brave Beaver, and Willa is sitting at the table, and the camera is kind of like shifted to where she's the focus on the left, and you can see the doorway on the right, and you see like the I don't want to say police, but like Lockjaw's forces entering the room before she notices. And I just like that shot a lot. And then there's the framing of her walking, down the hallway with all the sisters like detained against the hallway. And I think the locations are so important to this.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that production design, I think most people would think about like, well, hey, what sets did you build? And did you really build a ton? And I think they did for the raid that you're talking about and like Backton Cross.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they just scouted some incredible locations.
Totally. And, with production design also comes set deck. And, Bob's apartment, Sensei's apartment.
I mean, that hidden door.
Yeah.
And just the rug that unfurls after he slams the hidden door.
Yeah. All of it looks lived in and just perfectly encompasses like these characters.
Yeah. It's unreal. I agree with you that I think sound is going to be an interesting thing for them. It's done very well, but they're going to have to describe, or I guess describe's the right word, explain to people why the sound was so well done in this movie versus something that's like, well, F1 was louder. So shouldn't that get nominated and win?
Right. Well, you brought up that moment with where they're passing, the two cars are passing and the little device goes off with kind of blends in with the music itself. This movie's doing some really cool stuff with sound.
Yeah. I'm very much enjoying across the board. And what I really like, and a reason why I think it is a contender, or not contender, it is the front runner for Best Picture, is this is the first movie that you and I have covered where we went down the length or the list of a very lengthy amount of nominations and have more or less justified their place.
Yeah.
Right? Not even their place, but like the reason why they probably should win in those.
Yeah. I think the only things that are maybe iffy are some of the acting. But
sure. Well,
but
I mean, two of them are in competition with each other.
Right. Yeah, there's that. And that speaks more on like the competition is just pretty heavy in like the lead actor category with Timothée Chalamet going up against Leo or Tiana Taylor and two nominees from Sentimental Value and all of that. And Chase Infinity not getting nominated at all. Yeah. But beyond that, like that again speaks to the level of the casting and how that probably deserves the win overall. I don't know. This movie doesn't miss.
It really doesn't. And I want to shout out while we talk about supporting. You really don't like holding that.
I know. I keep going to throw my notebook on the ground.
I keep seeing the look on your face where you're like, why am I going to do that? I don't want to do that. Same. I would be remiss if we talked about, supporting cast and didn't mention Regina Hall, at least briefly.
Yeah.
I don't think that Regina Hall has enough screen time here to kind of like, especially over like a Chase Infinity nomination, but to include her in any kind of supporting actress nomination. However, if there's any kind of like respectful bow that we can give to Regina Hall, I absolutely want to give it because she is kind of the only mother figure in Willa's life.
Yeah.
In this movie. And she's so good. There's another little speaks to the casting. And this is more, I think Paul Thomas Anderson probably suggested this because it seems like him, but the interrogation officer in this movie, I need to look up his name. He's actually an interrogation officer.
Oh.
Like he's an interrogator. And you can tell because there's like little moments in this movie and that kind of helps, like, you know, the sting and the humor where there's like little jabs of humor. And he has a great scene with Regina Hall where she's kind of like, please, I beg you, like, don't do this. And he's like, do you know how many people come in here, Deandra, that pray to God? And like, he doesn't hear you. And I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
So the idea to stand against someone like Regina Hall and not be like this huge actor is a testament to him and a testament to the casting and a testament to Regina Hall. So
yeah,
I thought she was incredible. I'm not saying anything unpopular with that, but just want to make sure we shout out some incredible performances that, along with Chase Infinity, which just, you know, what's going on, weren't nominated with this.
Yeah, everybody, no matter how small the character.
Super important. Yeah.
Incredible.
Just across the board.
Yeah.
What else would you want to say about this movie that we haven't said yet?
My biggest regret of the entire year, I think, is not seeing this in theaters just as a whole. But man, I want to see this in VistaVision.
Obviously, you're doing the death race.
Yes.
Right? You have a lot that you have to see. You're doing great work. You're over the 50% mark now.
Yeah, I'm 66 or so.
Look at you.
Yeah.
You're doing great work. They are re-releasing movies.
Yes.
In theaters, and specifically Sinners and One Battle are playing in IMAX again. Do you see yourself carving out the time to go see this in IMAX?
I would love to go see it in IMAX. Just thinking about the movie now in hindsight and all of those amazing shots that we talked about, I did myself a disservice by watching it at home.
But and that wasn't like an intentional thing on your part. That's just the way to use Willa's line that the cards were rolled out, right?
Yeah. I just missed seeing it in theaters, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and then it was out on Max, and I was like,
here I go.
Okay. But yeah, I've loved it so much that I'm like, I would absolutely go see this again. Why not see it in the best format possible?
Yeah.
Where can you see VistaVision? What's the nearest place to us? New York?
Oh yeah, I think there might be a Florida.
Really?
I think there might be a Florida, but it's not like Jacksonville or Orlando. It's like further down, like Miami or Tampa.
Really?
So it is pretty far. We're in Georgia. It's worth noting for anyone listening. So it's a little harder for us.
Yeah.
There are IMAX theaters, like true IMAX theaters. There's like the Mall of Georgia that has like the true IMAX that you can go see. I'd be interested in doing that because, you know, my theater, it's still IMAX, but it's not true IMAX. That just rocked me, being able to see this movie in that kind of format. So unbelievable. Do it if you can. VistaVision a little harder. I think
harder.
if we lived in California, it'd be a lot easier for us to do something like that.
Yeah. But I really think it's like 4 places in the world right now.
It's not many.
No. But I think that's something that's going to become more prevalent and popular just because of the amount that it's being used. It's super cool. I think White Christmas was the first film to be shot using VistaVision.
Wow.
Paramount developed the technology. So that's something we'll talk about, like its creation and its use and all of that when we get to White Christmas in 2 years.
Must be why I love that movie so much.
That's probably it.
It's worth noting that even if you can't go to VistaVision theaters and see this in VistaVision or true IMAX and see this, that seeing in theaters is the smartest play, right?
Yes.
I think that there is a ball knowledge that went into this where the people who know ball were like really excited for Paul Thomas Anderson, and otherwise people are just kind of like, yeah, that's a Leo movie coming out. Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see it. We'll see. And it came out and it did pretty well, but then it had legs, and those legs continued because everyone was just like, have you seen this movie yet? And that's what it was for me. It was a lot of like, my brother was like, hey, I'm interested. The Paul Thomas Anderson movie's out. Tim was on the last episode, Marty Supreme. Even he was like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to make some time. And I saw it and I was like, no, you're going to like carve out tomorrow to see this movie.
Right.
Because there is a fear, a little bit of like how much glazing is going into this. Like if I tell you that this is one of the best movies of the this generation, this century, whatever I say, does that make the movie not good?
Right.
And I was trying my best not to tell him that. And he walked in knowing a little bit. And he was still like, yeah, what the hell is going on? Like, this is crazy. So I think even knowing that, there's a lot of people who are kind of agreeing like, yeah, I mean, this just is like all around perfect. Like, what can you say about this?
Yeah.
And yet, even with us saying that, we're not 100% sure that this is going to be the front runner.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
What a crazy, amazing year for us to cover for the first time together, you and I.
Yeah.
Because in any other year, any other year, maybe this isn't the winner, but you could say this is the most deserving movie.
Sure.
You can't say that 100% this year.
No, definitely not this year. And but at the same time, it's one of those things where I look at the list of nominations and I'm like, if it took every single one of these home as a win, I would understand it.
It's justified.
Yeah.
So cool, because we've covered years where this has been the case, and we will cover the years where this has been the case. Not always the case, right? We can say, okay, well, this one needed this in order to get that, and I guess you can say that, sure. No, this makes sense across the board. This is just like Sinners in the sense that, well, it's a period piece vampire movie that's revolved around sound, where you're like, well, that's like 8 nominations right there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's written into the script that it's going to need all these things. Except this one, in my opinion, validates every single one of them. So, very, very incredible movie to be talking about. And this just kind of feels like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but this just kind of feels like what I imagine it would be like if we were podcasting in 1929 talking about, or 1930 talking about All Quiet on the Western Front. Where you're just like, what's going on, man? What are we watching?
Yeah, probably. However, that year, I think that was the clear winner. Whereas this one,
true.
There is I don't know, man.
What's happening?
It could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, just like you said, incredible film. I feel like this is the one. I can't even say that. I was going to say the one people are talking about.
That might be period. Like, I think this is the one.
Yeah, we might look back at this episode and be like, yeah, the amount of praise we were giving it makes sense because it won Best Picture. Who knows? We'll see.
I want to point this out before we talk about ratings that I pulled up my Letterboxd to double check I'm pretty sure I know what my rating is, but just to double check it. Popular this week is Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Sinners, Begonia, One Battle After Another, Train Dreams, Sentimental Value, Secret Agent, and Frankenstein. It's very cool to feel like everyone around us is also doing the same thing of like, oh, I gotta watch these Oscar movies, man.
Yeah.
It's very cool. There's also like Send Help and The Housemaid in here, but that's,
yeah,
that's also happening.
You gotta stay timely and relevant.
That's true.
I will say, to add on to that, I may have already mentioned this in the last episode, but I spent the last week on a film set, and it's very cool. I had people come up while I was taking notes for this episode in particular, and they're like, what are you working on? And I said, well, I actually have a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I had the opportunity to talk about movies that like they wanted to talk about, that were relevant and timely. And, they weren't like, what's a Disraeli?
A question that you and I are still asking.
Right. So it's just really exciting. And actually, I'm going to take the time to mention, like, if you want to talk about these films with us, or you have something to say about any of these movies, you can shoot us an email if you want us to read that on the show. We'll read it during our ceremony episode. That's outao podcast@gmail.com. But also, if you want to talk about the movies directly with us, we do have our community Discord. Normally, that's accessed through a paid tier on our Patreon, but we do have a promotion going until the Academy Awards air, where you can get access just by following us for free on Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/OUTAO podcast. Just give us a free follow, and we'll send you that Discord link. And then you can talk about all these movies with us in real time.
Which is so exciting, because we're doing plenty there. And you can also see how I am doing incredible at getting all these framed and other games in one shot. One guess. Isn't that incredible?
Let's talk about ratings.
I did that yesterday, and it was a complete fluke.
It was disgusting.
What was the gift that you sent me? It was like, so it's treason.
Yeah, it was Palpatine. It's treason, then.
I was like, I'm sorry, I guessed it. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, so let's get into ratings. I see yours pulled up here. You know yours, though.
I do.
Okay. What's yours?
4.5 stars.
I didn't know if you wanted
to
speak on it.
Yeah, on a rewatch, this would probably be 5 stars, especially if I saw it in theaters.
For sure.
Yeah. I think there was one like story beat that I wasn't crazy about towards the end.
Okay.
That I would be completely fine with on a rewatch.
Got it.
But that's pretty much the reason for 4.5.
Yeah, so this is a 5-star for me. Across the board, this is 5 stars. Watching it a second time, it was 5 stars for me too. I was kind of anticipating a second time, which was just last week that I watched it. I was a little concerned that maybe I drop it back down half a star. Like maybe it was just a little bit of glazing. Like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how it played a second time. I think it plays better a second time. I think that you catch these things that I mentioned, the naming of Bob and Willa Ferguson being so close to, that. One thing that I think is also a little nice touch, and this is just mostly me reading into it, one of the members of the French 75, I'm forgetting his name, but he's being interrogated, and he's asked what Ghetto Pat and his daughter's names are. He's like, yeah, I got you, no problem. So it's Fred and Wilma Flintstone. And he gives so close of a name. Like, obviously, it's a joke of Wilma Flintstone, but he gives a name that's so close to Willa that theoretically, if you think about it, you're like, okay, so it's obviously not Wilma. So you're kind of writing off anything that's like close to Wilma if you're the interrogator, right? I thought that was such an interesting little detail that maybe I'm looking too much into it, but I thought that was, kind of cool. Clever. Tiny little things that you catch a second time where I was like, nope, certified ball. Like this is a slam dunk.
Great screenplay.
Which I guess we didn't even get to talk about that. It's I think it's gonna win.
Yeah.
Adapted screenplay. Easily.
Totally.
But 5 stars for me, and I hold that close to my chest, and that's I don't give out 5 stars very often. That's a no-brainer. It is worth noting that on Letterboxd, the mean or most commonly awarded rating here is 4 stars. It's sitting at 4.2 as a total, because there are a lot of 4.5 and 5 stars, but just a bit more in 4-star, which is a little surprising for me, but not surprising. You're not really seeing a lot of 1s, 2s, halves.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Again, fantastic film. Let's talk double feature though.
Let's talk double feature. So, do you have a double feature for this one?
I do, and I think one of the biggest moments in this movie is the car chase scene.
Totally.
And really there's another car chase scene that happens towards the center of the film. But you could argue that this will go down in history as a car chase movie. Not as a whole, but as definitely a highlight.
What it's known for.
In the same vein as something like The French Connection. Not a car chase movie, but constantly referenced for that car chase scene at the finale, an inspiration to this film, as a matter of fact. So I also went with a car chase movie that gave me the level of anxiety and tension that this movie provided me, and that is Quentin Tarantino's film Death Proof.
Oh, wow.
I love that car chase. It's so good. And that movie is like a tribute to car movies from the past. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, Vanishing Point, these classic like car exploitation films.
Great.
Yeah. So Death Proof's a very different movie. It's almost like a horror thriller movie in a way, but the car chase is phenomenal and definitely worth checking out if you enjoyed that bit of this movie.
Great recommendation. I feel like there's also a little bit of, obviously not in the same vein, but there's a little bit of similarity in Lockjaw to Kurt Russell's character.
Sure.
In Death Proof.
One of the women in the second half of the film is Jungle Julia, radio host. Like, there's a lot of strong female presences in Death Proof as well, which
Absolutely.
is kind of very accurate to Willa and her mother, Perfidia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also speaks to Kurt Russell thinking lowly or not as highly of them and not thinking that they would be his downfall.
Underestimating them.
Underestimating. Wow, what a great word. Thank you for that. Yeah, great pick. So for my double feature, I looked a little bit of how relevant this movie, One Battle, was for our current time. You know, politically very divided, and it seems like it's almost like there's no hope. And then this movie speaks to the hope, that you can have, and just having the faith or the trust in people, even if you can't protect them, like just giving them the space that they need to go and be out there. It was very hopeful. And it made me think of a movie that didn't necessarily think about the current hopeful status, but was a microscope look of where we are currently and how we got to this point. And I decided to pair it with Ari Aster's 2025 movie Eddington.
Oh, okay.
I think Eddington did another very good job of looking at where we are currently and instead took a very pessimistic look versus PTA's optimistic but realistic look of where we are currently.
Sure.
I thought that a more absurdist yet not too far from the current scale of where we are currently and where we were in 2020 look of Eddington. I thought that Eddington was slept on unnecessarily. Yeah. I think that the A-list version of this story is One Battle, and the trauma version of One Battle is Eddington.
Trauma.
Yeah, well, the B level is what I mean, the B side.
I see.
It's not, and I don't mean to talk badly about Eddington. I actually very much liked Eddington a lot, but I think that it was such an interestingly different take of where we are currently. And it chose to be more of the cynical, pessimistic, like, look where we are. And again, maybe the word I'm looking for is realist. Sure. But I think PTA's version is very much a real look of where we are, but also a little bit of like, things might get better if we just have faith in each other.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. And there's a lot of like inciting
Events.
No, inciting like a desire for the younger generation to like take hold of the change they want to see.
Yeah,
by the end of the film.
That's a great point, and I think that it's just the other side of the coin on that. I think that there's a lot more of like a inspiration of like, hey, our younger generation should keep trying.
Yes.
Whereas Eddington is like, our younger generation doesn't know what's coming. Like they don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And they can try all they want, but ultimately this is where we are because that's what we've instilled in ourselves. Again, very cynical. Some would say realist. I kind of agree with them, but a cynical look versus the more grounded version in PTA.
Yeah. No, that's great. I again, constantly picking movies that I have not seen yet. I'm one of the people that slept on Eddington, but from what I've heard, that sounds like a great double feature, if not long.
I don't. That's true. I don't fault anyone who slept on Eddington because the last thing that you want to do, especially given the current political climate, is be like, "Hey, is there like a 2-hour and 30-minute movie that's going to make me feel bad about where we are right now? Like, can I check that out? Can I revisit 2020 in like 2.5 hours from the director who brought me Hereditary and Beau is Afraid?
Right.
I understand.
Yeah.
But it is worth watching. I'll say that.
And I shall.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that.
You should watch Death Proof.
Okay.
I know you've seen it.
I mean, again, but
You
yeah,
should watch
sure,
it again.
I will.
It's great. Underrated Tarantino.
I have the Grindhouse Blu-ray.
Let me borrow it, bestie.
Which you may. Which, by the way, I didn't do this on Marty Supreme. I'm so sorry. However, physically, if you want to own this movie, you can. It's on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. You can pick that up now, courtesy of Warner Brothers. It's also on demand, and it is also streaming on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So those are ways that you can see this movie. However, it is, has been re-released in theaters, specifically in IMAX as well, for you to see. So if you have not seen this movie or you didn't get to catch it in theaters, eye daggers pointed across the room. You should do that, and you have the opportunity this February before the Academy Awards, March 15th.
Totally. Yeah, the physical media side feels like so different when we're talking about modern movies.
Yeah, basically just yes or no.
Yeah.
Or
is it out yet?
Rather, yes or not yet.
Yes, no, Netflix. I think
true.
it's like the
Yeah, that's kind of it now. Maybe HBO Max with how much Warner Brothers we're talking about.
Yeah, totally.
But a lot of these are going to be available on demand. This is no exception, but also you are able to pick it up physically and stream on HBO Max.
Sweet. That's pretty much everything for One Battle After Another. Phenomenal film. Yeah, if you want to support the show, I mentioned the Patreon. You can shoot us an email if you want to talk about this movie or other movies. All of that's always in the show notes as well if you just want to pop it open and give it a click. Rate and review the show, and yeah, that's all I got. So
I think that's it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Kyle.
And I'm calling in a Greyhawk 10, Comrade Josh.
And we'll
see you at the movies.